Hello, everybody. These will be my top 10 favorite BlueLock characters. As you know, from clicking on the video, each of us will be doing our list. But first, I don't know if the others have this, but I have some honourable mentions. The first of these honourable mentions actually goes to two characters, Kuso and Bello. We've not seen much of them, but both their designs are great, and they quickly earned a lot of points for me. As well as this, seeing Kuso's analysis in the game is really bumping him up. I like his personality, and I just like the way he behaves in terms of interactions with other characters. However, until we see more of both of these players, I can't put them on the list. Next up is Akira and Doji. As you could probably guess, he's an honorable mention because, in my opinion, he's the best character design in all of BlueLock. That's it. I just can't get over how awesome his design was for him to do absolutely nothing. The next honorable mention also goes to two players, Sendo and Yukimiya. These two have been in my top 15 for a very, very long time. Since Sendo's introduction, he's been in top 15, and since the start of the Munchen game, Yukimiya was top 15. They're both amazing characters, and I love seeing the way they've developed, especially in terms of Sendo's hunting for his special training and Yukimiya's development in the PXG game. Honestly, if we had got to see Yukimiya as a starting player in Nigeria, I probably could have seen him break the top 10. I also believe that if Sendo actually develops Predator Eye and we get more screen time of him, he'll quickly rise to my top 10 as well. Next up, Himizu. He was one of the best characters in episode Nagi. I can't put him on the list due to his overall lack of presence and impact in the story, but honestly, he carried the 4v4 game in episode Nagi for me. Naruhaya. Still to this day, the best backstory in all of BlueLock. I enjoyed it so much, and I felt so much for him. After learning his backstory, I actually began rooting for him and Barou in the 2v2 game, and just hoping that Isagi would get eliminated. It was obvious he never would because he's the main character, but I was just hoping for some random twist where Isagi went out just so Naruhaya could survive. Unfortunately, it didn't happen though. The last character absolutely hurts my soul not to put him on the list. Honestly, he's tied with 10th place, but 10th place used to be my favorite character of all time, so I felt he needed to be included. But this character, I absolutely adore him. It's Aiku. He's the best defender in Japan as of now, but I don't think that title will last for long for him, but he is definitely one of my favorite characters, and I'm so sad I couldn't put him on the list, but there's just 10 people who beat him out. However, I have one more honourable mention. This last honourable mention is to the character who was done most dirty in the entire story. I did not care for this character at all until the NEL, where after the Munchen game, all I could think was, what the hell is wrong with Noah? Why can't you play a decent defender over the trash on the pitch? Sorry for my outburst. I fell in love with Tepe Naru on rereading the U20 match, and hoped and prayed during the Ubers game he would get subbed on and show prominence and give a reason to survive, especially over a character like Kiora, who is worthless. It still angers me a lot that he never got playtime, considering his performance in the U20 match, despite not being incredible, was better than any performance Birkenstock and Mensa made. His lack of playtime and the disrespect he faced caused me to fall absolutely in love with his character and gain a massive newfound respect for him. And it has also gone on to make me a part of the hashtag Justice for Neru movement. Yes, that's right. I expect to see everyone in the comments. Hashtag Justice for Neru. Let's ramp it up. Okay. Next up. Well, actually, now that I've said my piece on all of these honourable mentions, let me inform you of what truly is the Lexio Black Moon top 10 BlueLock characters. I'm gonna take a quick breather, Tsuki, you can just cut this shit out. Number 10, the wildcard hero, Kunigami. Kunigami is a character who was my absolute favourite at the start of the series. I loved him during the first selection, I loved him during the second selection, and even after his elimination during the third selection and the U20 game, he was still my favourite character, despite not even looking like he'd ever show up again. I absolutely adored his superhero persona. And then he returned. And it was one of the most hype moments for me in all of the series, until I saw his new personality. It weighed so heavily on me, he was so much different, it hurt deep down. I'm excited to see his development and see his potential change, but his character has taken a massive, massive hit in terms of quality since the wildcard. Number 9. The relatable striker, Bunny. Bunny's mentality and demeanor, and pretty much everything about him, I can really relate to. He has this massive lack of motivation and this really depressive attitude towards a lot of what he's got to do. He seems very unmotivated, and he seems almost like he doesn't enjoy what his favorite things are. He's got these few things that he really loves to do, but they're unenjoyable for him. And I can really relate to that. His lack of motivation and depressive attitude are things I've suffered with, and I still do in some instances. I appreciate the character and his prominence as a New Gen 11, because it shines light on issues that I personally have suffered with, and it also shows that despite this, people can overcome it, and we can rise to prominence, which was shown by the fact, despite his downfalls of the lack of motivation and his relatively depressive attitude, he is still a New Gen 11. Next up, the monster dribbler, Bachara. Bachara is a character who's always been consistently on the lower end of my top 10. I love his character and his crazy and goofy antics. I just think there is a bit less quality to it. There are ways he could have been made to be better. I don't think he's got any massive flaws, I just think he's got a lot of missing potential. In a way, him and Shido are sort of two sides to the same coin. Bachara's antics lean into the freedom of getting to say and act how he wants, getting to perform and play the game in his own unique style. Meanwhile, Shido, his more represents just being able to do as he pleases. Being able to get away with whatever he wants, just being able to enjoy himself, which mostly seems to be done in the way of him not having clothes on. I don't like that. I like the version of this crazy, goofy thing they went with Bachara. But the differences between him and Shido are what make Bachara one of my favourite characters, and Shido in my bottom 3. Number 7. The ultimate post player, Ranzei Corona. Ranzei Corona is a very new character to prominence. I like his design, and his gimmick of repeating himself. I find it very funny, the way he just goes, on it. I really enjoyed seeing him show off his skills in Bastard Munin. He wasn't too overpowered to an unbelievable extent, but he was definitely a character who could hold his own and make a name for himself. I enjoyed the fact that he didn't just come on the pitch and suddenly he's competing with characters like Rin and Rayo and stuff, but he did come on the pitch and he did show, whilst he's on the lower end of character skill levels, he can compete with people like Zantetsu. He can compete with, he instantly made a name for himself as a character who will survive and has the skills to survive, whilst not showing himself to be I am so overpowered, I must be a starter. Like some of the characters. Cough, cough, Hiyori, cough, cough. Number 6. The reborn crown jewel, Ryosuke Kira. As we all know, I love the flexibility of Kira's character. I love experimenting with ideas related to Kira. But when we're talking about what Kira actually is, I love him for different reasons. First of all, with the showing that he may return, I am very, very excited. Kira's a character who's been very interesting to me at all points of the story. He started out as this nice guy who seemed to want to work as a team, but then he got eliminated. That's when it started to reveal the cracks in his facade, and he started to show his true pride and vanity. The reason I say vanity and pride over ego is it feels very clear to me that his overconfidence is what caused his personality. It's not an ego in, I can do this, I want to do this, I want to make this goal for myself. It's a, but I'm better than them, I'm better than you, I am the best, shut the fuck up. And I feel like that is definitely different to an ego and how it's portrayed in the story. So I feel like saying vanity works a lot better, because a lot of people said he was very egotistical, which I don't think is how egoism is portrayed in the story. But due to the intrigue and potential of return, I am very, very excited to see what could happen in the story, especially if he keeps this vain persona. And even more so if he targets Isagi. Number 5. The final surviving egoist, Nijiro Nanase. At this point, you should all know, I adore Nanase. What else do I need to say? Number 4. Wait, no, you guys want more? Okay, right, fine, you guys can have more. Nanase. His personality and story potential outweigh most other characters. He isn't very skilled, but he has some very unique traits to him. While he doesn't have a high-level football capability, he does have specialty traits, such as his ambidexterity, which a natural ambidexterity is a lot more powerful than a learned ambidexterity. As well, he could make a very large impact to the story, as whilst he's never been shown at the forefront, he's always been there in some way, and in some moments, he's been in the background in a significant way, such as the third selection, or his flashback to his training with Rin. It feels like he's never been at the forefront, because they're still waiting for a massive Nanase moment. Okay, for real this time. Number 4. The fastest panther alive, Chigiri. Chigiri is a character who has consistently maintained prominence and a high level of skill throughout the story. I think the author has done a massive disservice to Chigiri, as by almost all measurable metrics, Chigiri is one of the best players on the team, but he gets treated as though he's one of the worst starters on the current Japan U20 roster. When you look at Chigiri's performances and how well he did, he outperformed everyone on his second selection team, and I will stand by that till the day I die. And yet somehow he was treated as though he was a worse player than both Barou and Nagi as of the second selection ending, which I think is ridiculous. Number 3. The King of Strikers, Barou. I know I just said Chigiri was a better player, but I really enjoy Barou's personality. Barou is a character who is amazing, and despite being very prominent, I feel like he doesn't get enough screen time, due to the story focusing more on strikers like Rin and Nagi, and specifically in the NEL, Kaiser. Barou was Isagi's first true rival. Barou was the guy who looked like he was going to go the distance as the main rival to Isagi. And then Nagi got introduced. And he sort of got pushed back a bit. It looked like there was going to be a triple rivalry situation going there, and I was okay with that. And then not too long after Nagi's introduction, we got Rin. And Barou got completely sidelined and ended up getting turned into more of a Nagi rival than an Isagi rival. Ridiculous in my opinion. Something I really did not enjoy. And it sort of put him, now that Nagi's been eliminated, in some level of weird limbo. Because he can go back to being an Isagi rival, but he can't really because we've still got Rin there. We've still got the future of them facing Kaiser. And he doesn't have Nagi here to like fall back on as being a rival to Nagi. So it's very strange in my opinion. Number 2. The perfect chameleon, Raito. Raito is a master of adaptation. And his development and storyline through the second selection to the U20 game was very enjoyable to read. One of my favourite storylines of BlueLock. Watching him have to deal with the fact Nagi chose Isagi over him, and then having to deal with desiring revenge, and then just wanting to forgive Nagi, and understanding but not knowing how to like get rid of his own pride to talk to Nagi about this, and then even in the NEL where they finally re-teamed up, and then his fire in the NEL where he scored a goal. I loved it all. I love that he is a well-rounded player, especially with his physique and his specific chameleon copy ability. I feel like he's almost guaranteed to be a contender for the future number 1 player. Not number 1 striker, but number 1 player. Number 1. The defender who sees all. Iki Nico. For those of you who know me, you should know that Nico was always going to be number 1. He doesn't get the acknowledgement he deserves. Considering his abilities and skill set make him a defender version of Isagi, which you can say Isagi has a lot of defensive feats, but Nico has not many, but has some offensive feats. He is more of just Isagi's skill set and abilities placed into the defensive role, which is very good. I love seeing his personality and his little one-liners and his moments where he shines, because those moments where he gets to shine are some of the best defensive moments in my opinion. Everyone believes Ryu and Aiku are both better defenders, and it's even sort of implied by the NEL rankings. When you actually look at what they're capable of, Nico is far better than Ryu, and Nico's on the level of Aiku. I feel like Aiku and Nico are sort of rivals fighting for the position of Japan's number 1 defender. Even though they've not actually shown a rivalry, they're both on that level where they both are fighting for the number 1 defender position. And Nico specifically, whilst is currently worse than Aiku in my opinion, I feel like by the end of the U20 World Cup, Nico will be Japan's best defender and will eventually become the world's best defender. That's my list. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Hi guys, this is Kat, and these are my top 10 BlueLock characters. Some of these might shock you, unless you know me, in which case, don't call me out in the comments. In 10th place, I have Lavinio. Strange choice I know, but hear me out. Even though we didn't get too much information on him besides the team he played for and his rivalry with Noel Noah, as well as how he plays, I still enjoyed him a lot. His energy is fun to watch, and whenever I'm rereading Bastard vs. Barcha, I always end up laughing at his banter with Noah. Outside of that though, I do like that he's not just a stereotypical laid-back guy, and how he shows rather than tells. Also, I like his tattoos, but dear God, what do they say? In 9th place is Lavinio's son, Bachira. Ever since the first selection, Bachira is someone I've found myself enjoying. His story is really compelling, and he has one of the strongest introductions in the series. I mean, kicking a guy in the face, quite a way to show off character. Outside of that, though, I love his journey with his monster and how he didn't abandon it completely, but allowed it to become part of his style, especially with advice from his dad, Lavinio. In 8th place is Sai. A strong point for him being one of my favorites comes down to his design and the execution of his story. As one of the only characters whose hair doesn't match his eyes, he's very interesting to look at. His story also intrigues me since he was crushed by the world but still kept going. That's one hell of a motivator for anyone, if I do say so myself. In 7th place, I have Nico. Nico is one of those characters that took a while to grow on me. At first, I didn't give him much thought, but once I read his light novel, well, that's when I really started enjoying him. He's a great character, especially for how much he's grown since the start of the series. I'm proud of him and can't wait to see him cook this arc. In 6th place is Hiyori. This is one of those characters where I can relate to them on a certain level. Without going into too much detail, I can relate to Hiyori in the sense of having a strained relationship with my family, and it felt good reading his backstory and seeing him finally play football for himself rather than to keep his parents together. Still can't believe that he's 6 foot tall though. In 5th place is Chigiri. Oh boy, this red-haired, speedy little man, where do I begin? When I first got into the series, Chigiri's backstory was one of the first ones that really got me hyped up. Seeing him go from this quiet, unassuming background character to someone who can cook everyone on the pitch, absolutely beautiful. Love my boy Chigiri. He hits the mark in character design, backstory, and growth. In 4th place, I have Henri. You knew this was coming. Henri is definitely an amazing character, even with the little information we've been told about her. It's clear that she's extremely passionate about the project and is confident that the payoff will be worth it. And seeing her work so hard only to be forgotten in favor of ego being the man behind the project does get on my nerves. Put some respect on my goat's name. If it weren't for her, this project wouldn't be happening. In 3rd place is Himizu. Here's where we get into the weirder picks. When I first saw Himizu in episode Nagi, I immediately was like, oh, I'm gonna like you. I have a soft spot for characters that like to mess with people. I don't know, I like gremlin energy. But as I kept reading the 4v4 and learning about his ability and backstory, he really grew on me. I enjoy writing his character, and I wish we could have seen him interact with other people. I feel like he'd get along great with Naruhaya. In 2nd place is Hiragi. Now, Hiragi is one of those characters that I loved the minute I saw them. First, his design really stood out to me as one of the only characters that ties their hair up, looking at Chigiri and Aryu, as well as his eyes having no pupils. And the fact his hobby is tarot cards, yeah, that drew me in further. But what really got me was how fast he could change on a dime. He went from being a friendly, social guy to, oh my god, this guy is gonna kill me in the span of a few panels. I also enjoy seeing his facade crack as he got more frustrated, because honestly, same. 1st place, I have Sendo. Okay, I honestly have no real explanation for how Sendo became my favorite. I think it's one of those things that just snuck up on me out of nowhere. There are a few factors at play here, one being his design. I really like his color palette, it's very pleasing. I also enjoy his friendship with Aiku as well as other characters, but I think the thing that sold me was how easy it is to write for him. He has so much potential that could be written in for a backstory even without having to be directly stated. It leaves a lot of wiggle room in my opinion. Hope you enjoyed my top 10, though it changes pretty frequently. With all that said, I am hopping off.
Hey guys, Tsuki is busy being, well, I guess Tsuki, whatever that means, so I'll be taking over his script. Sometimes I'll read the script saying I, but that refers to Tsuki, not me. He also said he has no actual reasoning for choosing one person over another. So in 10th place he has Ryusei Shido, and given he is the wild card of the group, that makes sense. I love seeing his energy towards other people, despite always trying to get in fights. He is always respectful of people, like how he showed respect to Isagi in the 3rd selection and Rin in the NEL after they stole his goals. My energetic side relates to him a lot, and I always be hyping up the bros like him. Lastly, the way he smiled even in defeat is pure wholesome sportsmanship.
In 9th place is Yoichi Isagi. It's really not his fault that he's so low on the list, but his yapping has got to be the part of why animating BlueLock is so hard, with having to find a pure blend between Isagi yapping and the pure football, which is why chapter 147 was my favorite chapter. Pure football, I just knew this was going to be peak when animated, as there was no yapping to animate, just focus on the football, and they cooked. Also, I genuinely never have the main character in my top 5 favorites, with exceptions being Goku, Ichigo, Senku, and Natsu. So yeah, it's just giving credit to the mangaka for creating so many interesting side characters, and some just to be wasted and then recycled by Lexio's Uber's team. Stay tuned for more clear content to see him cook with them. But Isagi calling Barou a loser whenever he just comes back against his rivals is always so much fun to see. His 2nd selection Isagi was my favorite, as it was a perfect blend of dominant Isagi that still felt like he could lose a game, Like, I get the whole point of adaptability, but sometimes losing games and wanting that revenge game hits so hard, which is something I haven't seen since the second selection. But yeah, Isagi is so much fun to watch and also very motivational, as he showed that an average player can become a go when he locks in. In 8th place is Lavinio. I'm currently doing research on Lavinio for 2 videos concerning him, and man, his ideology and character of originality is super underrated. He embodies the show how awesome you are leadership mentality through both his words and action, and he's like the cool uncle who be showing up when the African function be mid. If you know, you know. Hi, a cat note here? I do not know. So please explain that. In 7th place is Tabito Karase. Okay, so I thought his playstyle in the 3rd selection was really cool, targeting the weakest player to crush the team, but if it doesn't work in a 5v5, it ain't working in an actual match. His approach to the game and playstyle feels so normal, it feels like how an actual player would approach a game IRL. His analytical prowess and IQ always find ways to impress me, even with the other Metavision users doing what he does. His dribbling style is very unique. To him, only one other person who does it is Snuffy. But yeah, my favorite thing about him is he will always talk the talk and run that smoke no matter who it is against. And speaking of Snuffy, in 6th place is Mark Snuffy. After rereading the Ubers match, Snuffy's ideology of work really stuck through. It's kind of like Hoshiumi's approach to volleyball, which he told Hirugami, if things don't go well, just take a break or quit. I simply just love his backstory, that the best in the world can go from highest to lowest. It showed me a high schooler the depths of making sure you understand what you want in the future and how to act if things don't go your way. He has some of the best lessons in BlueLock and a non-BlueLock ideology, which I want to see more of in the U20 or main World Cup. In 5th place is Thierry Henry. Sorry if I butchered that. She is by far the most enjoyable and important female character to BlueLock's story, so I had to have her in the top 5. She's so bubbly, and I appreciate her referencing my childhood in Dragon Ball and Pokemon. Some of my favorite moments is when she puts Barata in his place and stands on business. She was so adorable crying after the victory against the U20 Japan team. Honestly, same. Agreed, she is the best. 4th place is Shohei Barou. I love my tsundere edgy characters like Vegeta and Bakugo, and Barou is no different. He literally is the character with the most strong-headed ego, being the king of soccer. And in swearing to never pass Isagi again, scoring a tough physical goal against the U20 team, and most importantly, making Snuffy not retire once he wants to do something. He gets it and is very diligent. His light novel about stepping up as a parental figure in the family, even when his deadbeat dad isn't, and he steps up for his younger sisters. In 3rd place, Michael Kaiser. Honestly, I find all the new Gen 11s so dang cool. Well, but Kaiser is an interesting case. He has my favorite backstory of all in BlueLock, and will stay that way for quite a while. He also has my favorite volume cover and hairstyle with a sick tattoo as well. It's a cool character design where the character is actually relevant. The Kaiser impact is one of my favorite things in BlueLock, especially the one against Ubers. Bro has ice in his veins. 2nd place, Seishiro Nagi. Honestly, me and him relate to each other, both trying to figure out our purposes in life, more importantly, what fires us up. We're both lazy and constantly looking for a fire, and once the final boss is complete, we both die. For me, it was 1,000 subs. For Nagi, it's beating Isagi. He was my favorite for my new number 1. And 1st place, did you
honestly think I was gonna do a whole video without voicing my opinion on Itoshi? Hell nah! This is my GOAT, my baby daddy Itoshi number 1. There was never gonna be any position else where I would put him. He has the best aura in the whole BlueLock manga with the Fibonacci sequence. The golden math ratio is so beautiful. His color scheme with the green eyes and the red hair is one of the only BlueLock characters to have different eye colors from his hair, so it makes him very unique to look at. His character is just nonchalant and cool, and it doesn't feel like he's trying to force it. He's just been like that. He's an aura farmer from birth. To be honest, I love characters that fit under the prodigy type ever since Itachi Uchiha from Naruto. So Azula and Itoshi became my favorite characters as soon as I realized they were kind of like Itachi, just because of the way Itachi was in his own story. But without Itachi, my main reason for liking Sai is because he failed and didn't let that break him. He showed it ain't over till it's over. When one door closes, another door opens. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have decided to double major in my psychology and my information science careers in my university. Him switching from striker to midfielder showed no matter what, if the whole world tells you to do one thing, it's your choice that makes the ultimate call. And as long as you have the resolve, passion, and follow through, you will make it through. It will always be okay. So people may call Sai a failed egoist for not being the best striker in Japan that people needed him to be, but for going to do what he truly wanted. But knowing some people may not accept him the same way is very inspirational to me. That's my list. Stay blessed. Tsuki out.
Hello everyone, this is my portion of the video, Serena Rosa, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this topic since, I'm sure most of us have gone through our head and known who our favorite BlueLock characters are, but I've never actually broken it down into a list like this, so I'm pretty excited about the fact that I get to do that since... If you've spent 2 seconds on my channel, it's pretty obvious who my favorite character is, and I pretty solidly have known who my top 5 characters are for the longest time. But when I actually had to think about an entire top 10 list, it made me really think, and it made me realize okay, wow, I really do love this character. I love this character, and I did start to see a commonality between my entire list, except for one character on this list I would say is the outlier, which is the fact that we really get to dive into these characters, who they are at their core and what motivates them and all that stuff. So I'd say that's a common thing with all the characters on my list. But let's get into my official list. Who is my official top 10 favorite characters? So in the 10th place spot, we got IQ. He is a character that we got introduced later on into the series. And something weird about me is in TV shows, I typically like a character early on, and then I'm very loyal to that character. I'm okay, this is my favorite character, and it rarely changes, which I'm sure you'll see that by my list, which character was my favorite, and then I just never changed it. But IQ, even though he was introduced quite later on into the story, he was just a character that immediately makes this grand presence, as being one of the first defenders, the first real defender that we got to see. The expectations were high, and he definitely met them. And at first, for me, he was just kind of this cool character. But then when we really dive into his backstory and learn that, he wanted to be a striker, but, that dream kind of got cut for him. And then he had to re-find his love for football through being a defender. That's when I felt okay, I'm really connecting with this character more. Because like I said, a commonality with most of these characters, it's really through their backstory that I got to be okay, you're one of my favorite characters, because that's when I really felt I connected to them. Okay, next in the 9th place spot, this is the character that I kind of said was the odd one out in my list, since like I said, most of these characters, I really got to have them be my favorite character through getting to know them more. But this is one of the characters that we still don't really know much about, which is Gagamaru, which Gagamaru is kind of one of those unspoken characters that even if he isn't your favorite character, you still love him as a character because he's just very cool and all that stuff. And I very much enjoy his character. I would say the moment that I was okay, I just really love Gagamaru as a character. And it's still one of my favorite panels to this day is the panel where we see him in the bear suit and he's just eating by a fire. And then you see the bear behind him and it's just this quick flash and you're what's going on with Gagamaru? What is this? And I feel that was also the moment for me where I was I just really enjoy his character, and also the fact that he's kind of the only goalkeeper, the only good goalkeeper that we've gotten to see. He gets to have all these amazing goalkeeper feats. He's kind of the only character that gets to have those moments. So that's also something that I really enjoy about his character. one of my predictions for the World Cup is I do think one of the matches is going to really focus on goalkeepers. Like, we're going to get a goalkeeper that's possibly like a new Gen 11 or just really good. And, it's going to challenge Gagamaru to have to, think about goalkeeping in like a different way, and we'll finally get his backstory. And I'm really excited for that possible moment when we do finally get Gagamaru's backstory, because right now he's just kind of like the cool character that he's just a solid character. We always know that no matter what, Gagamaru's solid, but I'm ready to get to know him at his core as a person. But just to show how strong Gagamaru's aura is even without a backstory, he's one of my faves. So he gets a 9th place spot on my personal list. So for the 8th place spot, this might be a bit of a controversial pick, and not truly controversial since obviously this is my own opinion. So there's not a true controversy, it's not like this is an actual ranking. But with most of the characters on this list, I feel like I have seen fans behind them being like, yeah, I really enjoy this character. But this is one of the characters that I don't see that many fans for. So for my 8th place spot, we got Yuki Miya. And definitely when I started to enjoy Yuki Miya is during the Munchen match, which is still one of my favorite matches. We just really got to dive more into his story. Obviously, we got to know about his diagnosis with his eyes and all that stuff. And I feel like that's when I saw a lot of people kind of like not enjoy Yuki Miya's character, because there's quite a bit of people that didn't enjoy his attitude during the Munchen match. But I feel like I really understood why, he had this sense of urgency. He really wants to be the best as soon as possible because he knows that he is on a clock with his eyes. And that's kind of like the main thing that when I see people talk about Yuki Miya, it's mostly making jokes about his vision and all that stuff. But even outside of like the stuff with his vision, I just do enjoy his character. I think he's interesting, doing something even knowing that it's, speeding up the process with his blindness. He has this dream, because I think what I enjoyed about his character, just to give more detail, is the fact that he is a character that on the surface technically has it all. He's popular, he's a model, he doesn't have to play football. He could just model, have a good life, get a good education. But his dream, love, and passion really is football, and his dream is to be the best in the world. And in a sense, he's, a tragic character, because we know that no matter how hard he chases his dream, he's not going to be the best in the world, because he's not a main character, So it really is like he's kind of like this doomed character in a sense. So the fact that we know that he is speeding up the process with the illness to his eyes, but he's not going to reach his dream. So I am interested to see where the author goes with his character, because I am fascinated about how his character will be written by the end of the series. Okay, I don't want my section to be a bajillion years long, so I'll slightly speed up.
Said no, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
But for the 7th place spot, we have Nico. He's a character that I really started to enjoy from since the first selection, when we got to know him, when he got defeated by Isagi. But it was really throughout the entire manga that I really started to enjoy him more and more, since he kind of had like this silent redemption, where in the first selection, he got defeated by Isagi, and then it was through Izaki's words that we really see him find himself as a striker. But then, he slowly turns into a defender. And I just really think his character is so cool, being the watchtower and kind of being like the defensive equivalent to Izaki. And once again, at the time of this recording, the latest chapter with Nigeria is currently what's going on in the manga, and him obviously saving the goal with his face, doing something like a feat like that. It just farther proves how much he's grown as a character. And I just really enjoy Nico. He's one of the youngest in the entire manga, but he's just I enjoy him. I enjoy the development. I enjoy the fact that he's grown so much since the first selection, that he really decided for himself that he's going to grow as a character, and he became the top striker of his team and was able to move on. And every time I see Nico, I'm just happy to see his character. So for me, he gets the 7th place spot. So I just fully lied because I said I was going to go faster and then I immediately didn't. But we're just going to keep these good vibes going and we're going to get to the 6th place spot. And like I said earlier, I had my top 5 pretty solid. Like, I knew who my top 5 was going to be right away. So when I found out that, we as the 8th clear group was going to do a top 10, this was immediately the character that I was like, okay, this character is for sure going to be in my top 10 outside of the top 5 favorite characters, because similar to Gagamaru, he's kind of just one of those characters where even if he isn't your favorite character, you still just love him. And it's actually quite fitting because at the time of this recording, his goal is the latest chapter, which is Bachida. Bachida is a character that we've gotten to know very well. He was, especially prominent in, the beginning of the manga. He's one of the egoist 4. So I quite enjoy his character. Bachida is also someone that I felt like I very much related to in their backstory, kind of feeling like you're a bit different, you're a bit weird, and kind of, being in your own head, as someone who was always very creative and kind of always in my own head as well. I very much felt for Bachida in his backstory, and through his backstory, I was just like, I just really love Bachida, because at first I wasn't sure, like, I wasn't iffy about his character, but I wasn't sure how I'd feel about his character. But by the 2nd selection, I was like, yeah, Bachida is just so cool. I really love his character, and he's just some of the most fun that we get in the manga, and I just really love that about his character. Okay, we are now at my top 5. Who are these 5 characters that pretty much the entire series I've been like, yeah, these are my fave characters. So probably spot number 5 is the character that has shifted around the most. Like, at some point he was my 2nd favorite character, then my 3rd, and he's kind of always slowly gone down. But I think he's probably going to remain at 5, and possibly, depending on what happens with his character in the future, he could bump up. But at my 5th place spot, we got Nagi. Nagi is a character that we for sure know a lot about. Definitely through the episode Nagi spinoff, I got to get even more of an appreciation for Nagi because we really just got to dive into more of his character and who he is. And I just really enjoy Nagi overall because, Nagi, he is really cool in the sense, being the lazy prodigy, him just being like, there's naturally gifted character. And Nagi is one of my favorite characters to analyze, which is maybe why he's one of my faves. I really love analyzing and breaking down characters, and Nagi is one of those characters where I could just talk about him and break down his character. Probably the best on this list in terms of like the amount of material there is to talk about, because definitely over a year ago, one of the most prominent topics on my channel was talking about the downfall of Nagi. And I wasn't talking about his downfall because I didn't like his character. It was actually quite the opposite. I saw that the fact that Nagi needed to experience a downfall in order to grow. And I just thought it was really cool seeing how the author was slowly building that up and seeing how, even though, because it could have been really easy to kind of make Nagi's character this one-dimensional, cool guy, he's just the lazy prodigy and he's just super good and just keep him as good. So seeing the author actually take a risk with Nagi's character, knowing that he is such a big fan favorite and actually showing such big failure by a prodigy character, because oftentimes in anime and stuff and in manga, like the super cool character, you know, they're always near perfect, and it's very rare you see moments of them failing so hard. So the fact that we saw Nagi flop so hard, I was like, oh my gosh, you're human. I relate to you. And one of, you know, the parts that breaks my heart most is after Nagi gets eliminated and kind of just seeing him like not fully take in those emotions. And then when he finally breaks down and lets himself feel the loss of BlueLock and realizing that he truly does miss it, I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, we are over 300 chapters in this manga. We have a whole spin-off and we're still learning new things about Nagi's character. And that's what I love about characters. I love learning new things about them. So for a lot of different reasons, I just really love Nagi's character. So next in the 4th place spot, we got the MC himself, the main character, Isagi. And Isagi is quite an interesting character because I feel like either people like love him, like that's their guy, you know, Isagi is the best and all that stuff, or there's people that quite dislike his character and just think he's overall too overhyped. But I would say I do lean towards the fact of obviously liking his character, hence why he's in the 4th place spot. But Isagi was a character that had to grow on me because I was kind of indifferent towards his character first. He was just kind of like the main character, so he was just kind of like the eyes in which I was consuming the story. But as time went on, I really do love that like Isagi is like the king of adaptability, and his whole thing is like puzzle pieces and figuring out what the missing puzzle piece is, and like we really get to hear his inner dialogue and inner explanations and how he impacts other characters. Because I know some people are over when Isagi has like his long monologues and it's like, Isagi, just play, we don't need these long monologues. But I personally enjoy them. Like, still one of my favorite things is the explanation he has in the PXG versus Bastard match, where he realizes the difference between a talented learner and a genius, and he realizes that he's a talented learner, and that's why he's able to keep up with geniuses, because he's constantly learning and all that stuff. And I just thought that was very fascinating. And, you know, his explanation for metavision and in earlier selections, him constantly trying to figure out, okay, what's the missing piece? Why am I not able to score a goal? And I just think all that stuff's really fascinating. I think that's really cool, since Izaki's another character that could have fell into the one-dimensional trap, especially as the MC. But I love the fact that, you know, we do get to see him grow, and he has his ups and downs, because I know some people thought it was a bit jarring that at the beginning of each selection he would kind of go back to quote unquote being a bad player. But I feel like that's a realistic thing. We as human beings, we're going to have our ups and downs, and I love the fact that Izaki just wasn't right off the bat like super overpowered. Like, he really did have to grow into being this character that we see today, and he really does have to adapt and change. For the 3rd place spot, we got Hiyori, and Hiyori is a character that, you know, I started to get to like more in the NEL as we dive deeper into his character. Since similar to Izaki, kind of when we first met him, I was kind of indifferent towards him, and he was a character that I really grew to like, especially specifically when we get into his backstory, where we learn, you know, the pressure that his parents put on him to be the world best, since, you know, they were always second place, and, you know, they specifically put this pressure on him to be the best, and how that made him lose his passion for football and all that stuff. And I just thought that was really interesting. And similar to Yuki Miya, I know people during the Ubers match kind of had mixed feelings about Hiyori. Some people were annoyed by his behavior during the Ubers match, but I felt like through his backstory and getting to know him, I understood his character. And I do like the fact that Hiyori is different in the sense where right off the bat, he wasn't like this super egoist, you know? He was kind of like, I don't really have a passion for football right now, and this is how I feel, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is similar to my 1st place spot. So maybe, I guess there's a connection there. maybe, maybe the less egoist characters just happen to be my faves at the beginning. Obviously, their egos grow as time go on. But I really did like the fact that Hiyori right off the bat didn't just right away like have all his issues fixed. And I feel like he doesn't have all his issues with football instantly fixed, but he's getting better. But through his backstory and seeing the development he goes through and all that stuff really was fascinating. And I just really enjoy his character. We are almost done. We now have my second favorite character. This character has been one of my fave characters for the longest time, and we got Rayo. So I think there's so many things I like about Rayo. He's actually typically a character that I thought I wasn't going to like, because I was like, oh, he's like the rich, cocky character. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that. But then we got to really know him, and just seeing how like really kind Rayo is, him taking Nagi under his wing and being like, we're going to become the best in the world together, and seeing how loyal he is and how kind he really is to his friends. It really made me just grow to really like Rayo. And also, I still think he has one of the coolest abilities, being able to copy people and be like this chameleon-like character. I just think that is so solid and so cool. And for me also, like, seeing his dynamic with Nagi, I really was just like one of those people that was like, Rayo, like, please become your own independent character. I think I'm just really rooting for him. I really want him to, have his own dream of being the best and realizing he doesn't need Nagi to achieve his dreams. Because similar to like Yukimiya, he's a character who has it all, even more so. His family is one of the richest families in Japan. So he literally has so much money. He could go do whatever he wants, but his one dream is something that he can't just instantly buy with money. It's something that he has to work towards. So I really love the fact that we see him, take on this challenge, knowing that it's going to be hard, but he still works towards it and works hard, and he does his best, and we see him approve and all that stuff. And I think that's what I really love about Rayo's character, is that, he could have just been like, I'm the rich guy, and he just could have been very surface level. But also through episode Nagi, we really get to learn more about Rayo and learn how goofy he really is, and how kind he really is, and how this really is just like his dream, and he's just working hard towards it. So Rayo, once I really got to know him, I was like, you're one of my faves. And he just became my second favorite character. And finally, we've reached towards the end of my portion of this video, since we finally got into my fave character. And like I said, if you know anything about me or my channel, you know who my favorite character is. He's literally my profile picture. It's Tigri. He is my favorite character. He's been my favorite character specifically since episode 7 of the anime. That is the episode where we discover what his ability is. And he literally, like, the moment I saw him break his chains and like run down the field, I was like, this is my favorite character. And I thought my mind was going to be changed, because I was like, okay, we're going to slowly learn about each character. So he's my favorite character right now, but it's probably going to change in the future. But like I said, I have this weird thing where when someone is my favorite character, I'm like, I'm loyal to that character. And that's for sure what happened with Chigiri. He just was my favorite character since season 1 of the anime, and it never changed. And then I read the manga, and I started to read the NEL and all that stuff. And then I was like, yeah, you're definitely my fave. And even during the U20 Japan match versus BlueLock 11, see, now that I started, I'm not going to end. Still to this day, if one of my favorite panels is the Gagamaru in a bear suit, one of the most heartbreaking panels to me is the panel where we see Chigiri when he gets subbed off, and we see him crying, and Ego's like, do you have a problem? And he's like, no. And it's just like his own frustration with himself, knowing that, because he took such a long break, his body is currently at that state wasn't able to handle a full match, and that anger at himself. And I feel like, there's just so much, like, I've always wanted to do a huge video breaking down Chickadee as a character, because to many people, he's just the guy that's like gonna break his leg eventually. It's like, it's hard to invest in him as a character because he's gonna break his leg. Many people are like, his leg is gonna snap at any point in the World Cup arc, but he's so much more than that. He's just such a fascinating character. But if I don't stop myself, I'll never stop. So I am going to stop yapping. That's been my section. Let me know in the comments how you feel about my fave list. Let me know if we have any common faves. And yeah, that's the end of Serena Rosa's portion of her top 10 personal fave characters.
Mate, I thought writing down your 10 favorite characters was gonna be simple. But once I actually sat down to try and do it, the list just kept going and going and going. And now it's as long as a bus. So forgive me if this ends up being quite a simple list, because my brain started hurting after a while.
Leave me alone!
Akira! Anyways, what's good everyone? I'm Raito 6. I'm team captain, and here are my top 10 favorite BlueLock characters. But before we get into it, I want to first give some honorable mention to some characters that didn't make the list. Now these characters are not necessarily in order of my favorites, but they're just ones that I did consider putting in before finalizing the list. So starting off, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Sai and Itoshi Rin, two of the biggest aura farmers in the series. These guys, they got it. They're cool with it. They've got their skills, they got their looks, and they've got the brooding personalities. And maybe with a little bit more time, they might make it into my top 10. Next, I've got Thierry Henry. Not just because she's named after my favorite footballer and a legend of my club, but because she's the one that made this whole BlueLock thing possible. And I think it's just way too understated how important she is in the actual story. And without her, I fear that even Ego would be lost and he wouldn't be able to function at all. And finally, shout out to my boys Agi and Kuso. Reason why? They're black. That's why. And they're cool. Cool as hell. Now let's get into my actual top 10 list. And bear in mind guys, this list is subject to change. But as of right now in the story, these are the guys that I love to see on panel. Starting off with number 10, Ryo Mikage. At first, Ryo wasn't up there for me. I even had Nagi above him. But truth is, Ryo is actually the archetype of player that I love. And once he detached himself from Nagi, he really started to grow on me. We all love his chameleon playstyle. But that's not the draw for me really. For me the draw is his footballing intelligence. A guy that can do everything on the pitch and also has the brains. Those are my favorite type of players. And I think that as the series progresses, Ryo's gonna keep climbing and climbing this list. And it really won't surprise me if he makes my top 5. But for now, he's at 10. And the one that takes 9th spot is Nico Iki. I think this guy's journey has been just incredible. In a team full of bums, Nico really had no right to make it through, and he's faced adversaries every step of the way. But my bro fought through it all, and even managed to make it into the BlueLock squad that got to face U20 Japan. Guys, we can't understate just how tough Nico's journey has been, and how good he has been in overcoming every single obstacle. And bear in mind, this guy was only 15 when the series started, one of the youngest in the facilities. Man, salute to Nico. That one there is destined for greatness. But next up from Nico, in 8th place, is everyone's favorite shark boy, Kuro Naranze. A guy that stole our hearts the moment he stepped onto the pitch. Not only is Kuron cute, but this guy's actually a lot better than we think. He was able to make an impression on Rayo when he faced him, as well as being 4th to clear the 100 goals challenge. But that's not what really makes him stand out for me. For me, it's his attitude and personality. Man, he's such a nice guy, and you can tell he's a hard worker. He might not make it all the way, but I'll always be rooting for this guy. And so, just up from Kurona, in 7th place, I have the gaffer himself, Jinpachi Ego. Simply put, Ego's the brains. And I love people that approach football with their brains. Man, I wish Ego was my coach at my team. Although to be fair, he is quite similar to my actual coach in real life. Every time he speaks, he only speaks to bring value. And he might be a little bit harsh, but this sport isn't just a game. If you want to make it in Ego's world, suck it up. And I love that. You can tell that he just eats, shits, and lives football. And someone like that will forever have my respect. Next, 6th place, we have Isagi's day 1. Bachira Meguru. Well, that's if you don't count Kira, the guy that he betrayed at first. We don't talk about that one there. Bachira is an absolute baller. Now, my typical favorite footballers are the ones that use their brains. I'm not so much of an aesthetics merchant. I don't care how good you are in a dribble. All I care about is how much you can contribute to my team, and Bachira's got it all. Not only is he one of the best dribblers in the facility, this guy's also a bagsman, scoring hella goals, especially recently, but he's also capable of the assist, a skill he demonstrated at first and one that actually made me fall in love with him. Bachira is the epitome of this BlueLock project. He's been able to keep up with every single task that's been thrown his way, whilst at the same time still staying a standout guy, as well as being the life of the party. Man, I love Bachira, but the next guy out from him will probably be a surprise for you all. In 5th place, I actually have Mark Snuffy. Yeah, this guy embodies my favorite archetype of player. Someone who's all about what's up there rather than what's down at your feet. I know I would have loved to play with a player like Mark Snuffy. And from what we've seen in the story as well, he seems like such a nice guy. I really hope he fulfills his dream of conquering Europe's top 5 leagues. But swiftly moving on from him, we have Yoma Chigiri in 4th place. A player that not only is he good to look at, but he's also good to witness play, and he's also a good friend indeed. Chigiri all round is just a great guy. I don't know anyone that can actually hate on this guy. And if you're one of his haters, you're a little sus still. One up from Chigiri. In 3rd place, I have Karasu Tabito. I know some of you guys are reeling at this one. For some reason, this guy gets hate, and I'm not sure why. Sure, he targeted Isagi in the 3rd selection, but the truth is, if you read between the line, he actually did it to hinder his opposition, because Isagi was starting to stand out. Karasu is a guy that plays football with his head, and for me, he's vice captain material, because his level-headed analytical play is just what you need in a pinch situation, and Karasu is the embodiment of that. And I guess one of the reasons why I like him the most is because of one of the first attributes he demonstrated when he first came into the series, which was using his arms to guard the ball, which was also one of the first amateur lessons I learned when I started playing football to maximize my dribbling. But yeah, I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I can't lie, I always look forward to seeing him on the screen. So for all you Karasu haters, suck on that. Now, coming in at 2nd place is Hiyori Yo. Another player whose football is in the head. I love Hiyori because he's an understated baller. I do believe that if he had motivation from the beginning, people would recognize just how good he is. The guy is an all-round monster. He can dribble, and he has one of the best passing techniques in the facility. And most of all, he also has that high footballing IQ. And I also like his off-field personality. He seems like a sweet guy all around. But yeah, there's just something about Hiyori that I just can't overlook. I guess maybe it's because I would love to have been someone in his position. Someone who was born and bred to play football from a young age. Although his parents' current circumstances isn't one I would wish on anyone. But I just know that this guy has so much more to give. And now that he started liking football again, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Now, we're finally onto my number 1. And you've probably guessed it by now. And maybe it's a simple one. Maybe it's an easy one. But still, I just can't overlook this guy. My number 1 is the main character himself, Isagi Yoichi. Bro, I love Isagi. Not like that, but I really love the character of Isagi. Someone who we was introduced to as average. Someone who's had to work so hard to get to where he is now. But the truth is, Isagi is actually someone who's always been good at football. Since a young age, he was recognized for his footballing ability. He might not have genius traits or the best physique in the world, but bro, there's so many players of Isagi's stature that you will find in all these academies, in all these Sunday League teams that are just mental at football. You don't actually need a standout trait to be the best on the team. And Isagi is an embodiment of that. Obviously, the offer keeps him as plain as possible so we can live vicariously through him. And boy, has that worked on me. But yeah, I'm always rooting for this guy because he represents us, the ones with dreams that choose to work hard to try and achieve these dreams. Whenever Isagi succeeds, we all succeed. Sure, his on-field personality might be a little bit techie still, but his true personality off the pitch is something that we can all appreciate. All in all, this guy's my favorite character because I'm super invested in his journey, and I want for him to win. And he's just as human as the rest of us. He makes mistakes, he gets things wrong, and he's sometimes the bad guy. But in the end, he's always looking to do the right thing. And that for me is why Isagi's my number 1. And that's my top 10 BlueLock characters pick. Hope you all enjoyed.